Tennessee at number 12 in the FPI. Your thoughts? Too high, too low, just right. It's our today's tough question brought to you by Craven Wings. Craven Wings with 3 locations around Knoxville. Jake Warren has the sauce 87, which is phenomenal. And the food is always fresh, never frozen. It's unbelievable. Too high, too low, just right. Tennessee number 12. Please hit that like button and the subscribe button if you haven't to this point. Be sure and hit that like button, though, so we can bring some more people in. Too high, too low, just right, Caleb.
I think it's absolutely too low. I think it's too low because of the teams that are ahead of them mostly. Look, I'm not here to knock the FBI. It's not like they're biased. They have a formula that they do for these rankings. And typically in the past, they have been relatively accurate. They badly missed on Tennessee last year, though. They gave Tennessee a 30-something% chance to beat Pittsburgh and then a 30-something% chance to beat LSU and an 11% chance to beat Alabama. So the teams that are ahead of them this year, directly ahead of them is Oklahoma at number 11.
Let me stop you for 1 second because Travis asked, what is the FPI for those in the dark? It has been around a while. It's starting to gain traction, but goodness gracious, it's kind of like they push it down our throats. But just explain it if you can for those that don't know.
So it's a predictive rating system that ESPN actually developed, and ESPN actually does a pretty good job with these analytical breakdowns. There's SP+, there's FBI. They use different formulas. On-field performance, level of rest, that's how they do a lot of their predictions and their projections for the year, and home field advantage and things like that. In preseason, they base these rankings off who has the best chance for certain. Well, that's how they do the predictive ranking, the predictive outcomes of games throughout the year. But
so basically, it's a formula that predicts every single game and then where you would finish, correct?
Your likelihood of winning every single game.
Okay. So
yes.
I'm gonna say right now that I'm gonna disagree with you if you think that's too low. And I want to go back to what you said last year. Pitt was a very underrated team. That was a tough matchup for Tennessee. If you would have told me that Tennessee had a 30% chance of winning at Pitt, I would have probably said that sounds about right. If you would have said this before the season, okay? If you would have said 30% chance of winning at LSU, I would have said that sounds about right. 12 to me, I see this as the opposite, and I'm a little bit surprised that we're on the other side of the fence. I see this as a sign of respect. Losing your quarterback, losing 2 of your top receivers, your defense still isn't proven and might not be even this year. I thought 12 was pretty respectful, not you?
No, because again,
No.
It's partially about who you lose, but it's also about what teams did last year. Oklahoma is not ahead of Tennessee. I don't know what formula they use for Oklahoma, except maybe schedule strength to predict them to be ahead of Tennessee this year. And by the way, the FPI rankings, the rankings aren't based on where you're going to finish because there are teams below Tennessee that are projected to have more wins than Tennessee, and teams nobody's above them that's projected to have fewer wins. But still, it's
what are we predicting here? Is this just a rankings like
they're using this formula for ranking, like actual ranking of the quality of the team right now, not predicted final finish. There's a power index, and then they use that to make their predictions along with home field advantage, resume, and things like that. It's based on returning talent, on-field production, coaching stability, recruiting, and transfer portal, and all of that goes into play. And I
didn't realize they use that much subjective knowledge. That to me is that gets a little sketchy. I'd rather you go back to the old BCS formula where it was all numbers and we could essentially compute it ourselves. They started including transfers and all that stuff. That's a little shady.
Well, you now have to include transfers because the transfer portal is basically another round of recruiting at this point. I mean, in many ways, it could outweigh recruiting because when you sign a recruiting class, even if it's the number 1 class in the country, 3/4 of that class, you don't expect to see the field their first year.
Well, but not to get sidetracked, but is a 5-star transfer in their rankings as big as a 5-star freshman, or is it bigger because it's a transfer? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how they factor that. Do you?
I don't, and I'm not exactly sure how they weigh it, but we have to acknowledge that a 5-star transfer probably should be higher because you take a 5-star transfer that's a sophomore or a junior, you expect them to start immediately. You take a 5-star freshman. Do you not? Do you
Well,
not?
you do, but there's still going to be the malcontents out there. What we've talked about with this transfer portal has been surprisingly refreshing to me. It's a lot of guys looking for more playing time that could already play. It's not just malcontents. But let me pick a guy like Justin Williams-Thomas. Didn't we all think that last year he could be the freshman impact player because he looked like Tarzan and he ran like Jane? And he couldn't find a hole for any amount of money. He just had terrible vision. I don't care what he looked like, what he was like physically. He wasn't a college football player. But that's a guy that if he was a high 4-star. So if he goes to, where did he end up? Stanford or Cal? He went to one and then went to the other. But wherever he ended up, that shouldn't be considered as big of a boost as a 4-star high school prospect, right?
Well, they don't. Well, now 247 Sports is actually doing their own transfer ratings, not based on what you were coming out of high school.
Okay, but we're talking about ESPN's, right?
Yes, ESPN's. So this is the thing. We're getting too much into the weeds because we don't know exactly how they apply.
We're way in the weeds.
But the real point of this, the overarching point, is that there is no way Oklahoma is ahead of Tennessee.
Right.
None.
Okay. So let me do this. This is what we originally planned to do. I'm going to read off the 11 teams that are ahead of Tennessee in the ranking. And you're our gambling guy. You have a great insight into gambling. So you tell me, if this was a neutral site game, would Tennessee be favored or the underdog? So I'll keep track, and I'm going to lean on you. I'm going to tell you when I agree or disagree. Ohio State's number 1 with a 31.5 rating. I have no idea what that means, but Tennessee would be an underdog against Ohio State at a neutral site, correct?
Absolutely, they would. They would absolutely be an underdog.
Okay, Alabama's number 2.
They would be an underdog, but I'm going to say it. I don't think they should be this year.
Okay.
My hot take of the year. I think Alabama is massively overrated.
I think Alabama's taking a step back, actually. So we're pretty close. Georgia, number 3.
Georgia would be favored on a neutral site.
LSU, number 4.
Would be favored on a neutral site.
Oh, wow. Okay. We're getting close to 13. All right. Texas, number 5.
What? Texas, number 5? No. Tennessee would be favored on a neutral site.
I agree. If the two teams meet in New Orleans, it's going to be Tennessee is going to be favored. Michigan, number 6.
Michigan would be favored on a neutral site.
Yes. Southern California, number 7.
See, now this one is actually tricky because you have the exact same offenses going head-to-head on a neutral site. I think Vegas would put more money on Caleb Williams, USC.
Yeah,
USC.
I would take the quarterback as the difference. Clemson, number 8. Well, we just saw what happened there.
Yes. I think Tennessee would once again be favored on a neutral site. Clemson, you want to talk about a program that there's a changing of the guard? They're falling back.
Yes. Notre Dame, number 9.
Tennessee.
There's no way that Tennessee wouldn't be favored above them at a neutral site. If they played in Louisville, Kentucky. Penn State, number 10. And then Oklahoma at number 11, right above Tennessee, who is number 12. So out of those, we had 1, 2, 3.
Wait, what about Penn State? Do you think Penn State would be favored?
I don't.
So Tennessee would be favored over Penn State too, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to go by favored, if you want to go by Vegas, I would have Tennessee as I'd have Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, USC is favored. Based off that scenario, those stipulations, which are very different, I would have Tennessee at number 6 or 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I have them at number 7. I do think they'd be an underdog to LSU on a neutral site this year with Jaden Daniels back.
Good stuff. So 6 or 7, and instead they're at 12. But if I would have told you this time last year that Tennessee was going to be at 12, don't forget to hit that like button. The thumbs up button greatly helps us. But if I were to tell you last year that Tennessee's 12 after losing a quarterback, its 2 top receivers, Jeremy Banks, who at the time we thought was great, I just think this is another sign of Tennessee either earning respect through a formula, whatever it is, or getting respect through those that put together a formula.
Well, more mathematically, delving deeper, Tennessee's projected win total is roughly 8-4 by the FPI. I'm telling you, if they go 8-4, that's a disappointment this year, given their schedule.
They should not. That would be an embarrassment.
I'm sorry?
With their schedule, that would be an embarrassment.
Huge embarrassment. Now, again, they take into account buys and things like that. And I've been saying, Josh Ward was the first to say this to us. And ever since he said it, I've been circling this game because I think Kentucky is a very scary trap game for Tennessee this year. Probably the scariest trap game for Tennessee.
I agree.